A lot of people, they confuse acclimating versus assimilating. Recently, I went down to Peru and I had a chance to hike in the Andes Mountains, very high altitude. And we actually flew into Cusco, Peru, and the altitude in Cusco, Peru is 10,000 feet plus. And so what we had to do on our first day is we had to acclimate, getting used to that altitude, getting comfortable breathing at a high altitude. We're in Colorado. I live in Colorado. We're at 5,000 plus feet in most places. And so when people fly in here, they have to get acclimated to the environment. And that allows you to actually move around and enjoy the environment for the time that you're there, in the moment that you were there. So you acclimate to the environment, which gets your body comfortable in that space. But that is different than assimilating into the environment, because assimilating into the environment means that I'm going to actually live there. Assimilating into the environment means that I'm going to be permanently placed there, or that I want to actually place myself there for a long period of time, and perhaps permanently. And so there's a difference in our lives when it comes to acclimating to the environment versus assimilating into the environment. And here's what I mean. When I go certain places, I understand that I need to acclimate to the environment, acclimate to the institution, acclimate to the group that I'm with, perhaps acclimate to the environment that I'm in, so that I can maneuver within that environment, within that group, within that institution for the time that I'm there and operating within that environment. A great example is college. Going to the United States Air Force Academy. I had to acclimate to that environment because I was there for 4 years. And then being in the military, I had to acclimate to the military environment as a military member, and even more so as a military officer. Did that impact my mindset? Absolutely. Did it improve my mindset? Absolutely. But I didn't assimilate to a level that would say I changed my identity as a result of the environment. And that's the difference. A lot of times what people are forgetting is you can acclimate for a temporary situation. You can acclimate for that environment in a temporary space and time. But when you choose to assimilate, you are now saying that I'm going to be long-term, permanently in this environment, in this place and space, and therefore I'm going to actually change who I am fundamentally so that I fit in. So understand the difference between what it means to acclimate to the environment versus to assimilate into the environment. And that will begin to allow you to understand what decisions you need to make, what decisions you should be comfortable with, what decisions you might not be comfortable with, what actions you might and might not take, based on understanding the distinctive differences between acclimating and assimilating into the environment. You know, a lot of times people are talking about staying true to yourself, being authentic, and they drop all of these words, and then they start mixing in the idea that someone can't be true to themselves, someone can't stay real or keep it real, someone can't be authentic because of the environment that they're in. Well, I disagree with that. You can actually stay true to who you are, you can actually keep it real, you can actually stay very authentic without changing who you are if you don't assimilate into the environment. Now, if you understand how to acclimate, that allows you to stay who you are, that allows you to stay true to who you are, and that allows you to continue to be authentic. But when you're acclimating to that environment, you understand the rules. You understand the guidelines. You understand what things work, what things don't work, what things are approved, what things are acceptable, and what the acceptable norms are. And you stay within those boundaries based on that environment, based on that situation, but you don't give up who you are fundamentally. That's the difference between the person who acclimates to the environment, staying true to themselves, staying authentic, staying real, and never giving up who they fundamentally are. In comparison and contrast to the person that chooses to assimilate into that environment. So when you assimilate into that environment, you're consciously choosing, oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes you're consciously choosing to give up who you are authentically, to become something that you or possibly not, to try to do everything you can to fit in to a point that no one would realize that you actually aren't an original individual that exists on their own, because you've taken on the new identity, you've taken on the new environment, and you've taken it on in such a way that you want to assimilate into this environment so that people view you as part of it. And so there's a difference in that. The idea, again, is the difference between, are you assimilating into that environment or are you acclimating to that environment? One allows you to stay true to who you are, stay authentic in your natural self. And the other one has the potential that you lose yourself. You lose fundamentally who you are. You lose the connection to where you're from. You lose the connection to who you come from. You lose the connection to everything about who you fundamentally are, because you're consciously setting all of that aside so that you can assimilate for acceptance. And I get it. We all want to be loved. We all want to be accepted. We all want to feel needed, feel wanted. All of those things are natural human things that everyone experiences. The question that I have for you is, what are you willing to do to be loved, to be liked, to be wanted, to be desired in a social environment? Are you going to assimilate so that you have people like you? Or are you going to choose to acclimate and be okay if people don't like you? Be okay if people don't accept you for who you are. Because here's the deal. If they don't accept you for who you are, perhaps you're actually in the wrong place. If people don't accept you and like you for who you are, where you're at, then maybe you need to find a new environment. Maybe you need to find a new group. Maybe you need to find a new social circle to attach yourself to, so that you don't have to work so hard to try to assimilate, giving up who you are fundamentally just so that you can be liked. At the end of the day, the reality is we do all want to be liked. We all want to be loved. But the question is what are you going to do to gain that like, to gain that love? What are you willing to give up to gain that? And is it worth it? And are you going to choose to acclimate to your environment, staying true to who you are? Or are you going to choose to give up who you are potentially so that you assimilate into a whole new world that may not be actually best suited for you? Blue skies, fair winds, and all the best.